Good evening. It is Monday, July 25th. It is 7:21 p.m. I am Jeffrey Wooden. To my right is Christy Marshall. We are the Safety and Health Committee. We are here tonight to pass a recommendation to Council regarding legislation that would require massage services. Would enact new legislation regulating massage services in order to reduce prostitution, human trafficking, and other illegal and harmful activities in the city. And we have a presentation tonight from Sean, if he would.
Chief.
I didn't know it was Chief. I apologize, Chief. I did not need to call it.
People make that mistake all the time. Sorry.
Good morning, or afternoon, evening. It's been a long day. So, the massage services ordinance that is being proposed today would hopefully cut down on illicit massage services. This is a problem nationwide as far as victims of human trafficking being involved in this and sexual activity, commercial sexual activity. Unfortunately for us, and we have done some enforcement attempts, they've not been successful because of a lot of these agencies or a lot of these organizations are able to skirt the law. There must be almost a direct quid pro quo for these commercial sex services for us to get a conviction in court of law. There are other things that they're able to skirt the law. The women that are taken advantage of in these places a lot of times will have language barriers. There's also a misunderstanding of the American legal system, and they won't accept help even when translators and different shelters are put in place. There is a human trafficking shelter in place in Columbus, Ohio. I've been in contact with some social workers from those organizations, and I believe that if this was enacted, they could at least offer services. But unfortunately, my communication with other jurisdictions that have enacted something like this, there's not a lot of buy-in when places that are involved in this are closed down. The women involved in this will not buy into this. This ordinance is specifically targeted and provides an exemption for a lot of legitimate businesses in Troy. That includes licensed massage therapists, which are licensed by the state medical board with over 900 hours. I believe it's over 900 hours of training that they have to go to. It exempts chiropractors. It will exempt other medical practitioners, doctors' offices. It also exempts cosmetologists and nail technicians as long as they are proceeding with just certain areas of the body, facials, shoulders, foot massages that come with the pedicures. Those are all exempted from this ordinance. Or anybody that is training under these other licensed professionals. So we believe that this will target the illicit massage parlors that are providing commercial sex services and frequently are involved in the human trafficking.
So I have quite a few questions. Not all would pertain to yourself, though, Chief McKinney. So I imagine that the scope of the law or the ordinance as constructed is, as to my understanding, there is a clear delineation between medical massage and what is essentially relaxation massage or non-regulated body work. And this ordinance is hoped to try to bridge that gap. To do licensed massage, you must be licensed by the state of Ohio. To do body work, as it might be, there is no regulation for that particular practice, so this is what that's trying to cover. So now you could go into a facility, say, let me see your license, you need to show us your Ohio board or Ohio medical license. That is what this ordinance is targeted at?
Yes, we could. This would be mainly complaint-based, I believe. We're not going to randomly select. Maybe at the beginning, a couple places would be selected to check to make sure that they're licensed. Generally, it would be complaint-based, though. We're not going to go and check every single business in the city of Troy that advertises massage. Now, there is a state board, there is I can call in, and we have called in before, if you advertise licensed medical massage and you're not providing that with an LMT or licensed medical massage therapist, you can get in trouble for that on the state level. But there is no state law that requires the more body relaxation massages that require an LMT. However, I think we've included that in some of the, at least for the legitimate businesses, we've included in that law.
I've been trying to find local ordinances that have been passed recently. One I have been able to find was one passed recently in West Carrollton. And this place is, and I don't know if this is exact carbon copy for what we would do, but this place is considerable power into your hands to grant, deny, revoke, or review all massage establishments with yourself or your appointed designee being the final arbiter of that case. And some of these issues that go on here are also checking about cleanliness, whether they have towels in the facility or linens, are all surfaces clean. Is that something you feel the chief of police should be handling or
That's
designate doing?
not really something I'm interested in doing as chief of police, as far as checking for the cleanliness of towels. And some of these can be looked at by the health department, by the zoning department, and by the fire department, some of the zoning issues. What we did is Grant and I were able to look at two separate types of ordinances that several local ordinances have passed. One provides for a massage therapy licensing that the police department would provide, similar to one that the city of Franklin recently passed. The other is a prohibition. So the licensing that Franklin passed would require an application fee, an annual renewal, and a checking of that. I was not really interested in that because of the burden it would place on places that are providing are already providing massage therapists that are not illicit. So we went with the decision to go forward with the one that is just a prohibition of providing massage, illicit or non-licensed massage therapy.
And I guess maybe my last question for you, just to make sure we're staying on the broader topic, what we're discussing, could you give a basic overview of human trafficking in not only just Troy, but the state of Ohio, and what the problems we do face and what we're trying to combat with this law?
I have been in contact with some of the local investigators, and what they're seeing is a large organization out of the state of New York. And these women are generally promised work in the United States, and their family pays for a transportation fee over here and work. They then have to work that off by providing so many hours of service, which is generally in violation of federal labor standards acts. When they get here, they do not, because there is a language barrier, they have a difficult time getting out of, which are basically these illegal labor contracts. And frequently the work at first is in something that is not in the sex trade. And that's maybe what the person was promised when they moved to the United States. Unfortunately, when they get here, they are either tempted or forced into the sex trade because there's more money to make sometimes in that sex trade. Once they become involved in that, they do not stay in the same place very long. They're frequently rotated throughout the United States. There is a specific corporation that several local agencies have identified in New York State that is responsible for a lot of the illicit massage parlors in this area.
I'm not sure if my remaining questions will be pertinent to the chief, so I will excuse him unless any other people on council have questions for the chief.
I do.
Mr. Phillips.
In your report, you indicate that you must have an undercover officer or UC as your material witness, basically. Does that have to be a law enforcement officer?
The credibility is easier to prove in court with a law enforcement officer. If we use a confidential informant that is not a law enforcement officer, it then becomes more difficult to prove credibility.
Any idea on the number of prostitution-type arrests or prosecutions that we've had, say, within the last year?
In the last year, I'm not aware of any in Troy that the police department has gone after or been successful. Our prostitution arrests are usually, they fall into our lap. You know, it's not, we don't have a vice unit. I can't send officers out on a regular basis to do stings in a red light district, because luckily we don't have a red light district. But yeah, but they usually either come to our attention through websites that our detectives frequently monitor, or we get a report of somebody actually engaging in prostitution at one of our usually local hotels.
The 900 number on the hours needed for your education component, where did that come from, number one? Number two, in conference with an NLMT today, on the website that she pulled up, which is the state site, it indicates that there are 750 hours needed for accreditation and certification from
I believe the
state.
900 hours came from the state medical board's website is where I got that from.
All right. Well, that discrepancy needs to be absolutely cleared up, because according to this, then any of the licensed massage therapists operating legally in town would not fit that 900-hour, because continuing education units and other things are not mandatory. They're all voluntary.
Okay. Well, the ordinance doesn't specify in hours. It just specifies that they need to be licensed by the state.
I was assuming that just because it's in the background report. So, okay, that's not, okay, no problem. That's all I have, thank you.
I have a question. I just want to be clear on what this means for someone who actually has a legitimate business. How is it going to affect them?
It would be possible that if somebody made a complaint against them, that an officer may show up at their business inside the city limits and ask to see their licensing paperwork. And once they provided that for us, that would be the end of it.
So there are no, as of right now, based on those two things that you were looking at, they will not have to pay any special fees or anything. You said something about Franklin County, there was something.
Correct. City of Franklin had a, similar to what we do with our food trucks and vendors, a annual license fee. That is not what we're proposing here.
Okay, so they won't have to do that.
Right. They would not have to do anything if they already have an LMT.
Okay. Thank you.
If I may offer just
Mr.
a
Phillips.
couple of points on that position of what the chief was indicating, the license must, or their accreditation must be in their hallway or office where it's open for view. They have credentialing numbers from the state and any other certificates or things that make them legal or blessed by the state, if you will, have to be on site and on. Sure.
I just wondered what that would mean for somebody who was running a legitimate business, had all their accreditation, had all their licensing. Would this being pushed forward cause them to have to pay more fees? Like, a vendor, a taco vendor or whatever, something like that. I didn't want it to cause them any extra headache.
I'd look across the street at a woman that provides licensed medical massage, and she has it on her sign. So, it says LMT right on the sign on her building. I have no plans if this is passed to go over there and ask to see her credentials unless we would get a complaint of some type.
Perfect.
I do have a question. I'm a physical therapist assistant. It does say exceptions for other licensed professionals such as chiropractors, physical therapists, cosmetologists. Is that the limited scope, or is it all medical professionals with licensure through the board?
It does include any licensed health professional while performing his or her licensed or registered profession.
Thank you.
Any council members with questions? Thank you, Chief McKinnon.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this issue? If you would, please come forward to the lectern, state your name and address.
My name is Michelle Cremines again. I live at 820 South Walnut Street here in Troy. Thank you for this. Thank you, Chief. Question number one, so if someone called and complained and an officer showed up, they complained that they're, whatever, how would the ordinance being enacted be any different than if that happened now? If someone called and complained, you would probably show up anyway, right?
So, right,
Please, please.
That's just general.
yeah. So right now, it's not necessarily against the law to offer massage services unless you're advertising that they're medical massage services. So we would get the state involved if they were advertising a medical massage service. However, there are other massage parlors that offer full body massages that are not licensed.
Oh, I understand that. And my point is just, if someone called to complain that there was illegal activity, you would show up now, even before.
It depends on what they
goes in.
provide to us, as far as sometimes it may prompt an undercover investigation.
Okay, sure.
Some,
But action will be taken
yeah.
right
yeah,
now.
So,
Right.
yeah, to a certain extent, yeah.
Sure,
I mean,
sure,
we get several reports sometimes, and it takes time to get an undercover officer
Absolutely.
to go in there. But it
Right.
might not prompt an officer going in. Right now, the difference would be is an officer would go in,
Sure.
or a sergeant would go in and request to see the medical, the therapist license.
Sure.
And, to see if they are licensed and in compliance with this ordinance.
Yeah.
And if they were not, they could be cited at that time.
Right. So that's all I just wanted, it would happen now. You would be informed, and then you would do what you,
We would do something, but
What you
there's
need to do.
there's no citation available, and this ordinance also calls.
I see.
to-
So if you were
to
to
be
go
able
in
to
there, they had
close
no
it,
license, and
there's
then
nothing we could
this
do.
ordinance gives you permission to,
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless we saw the sexual activity.
well, sure, naturally. I get it. Okay, thank you. Okay. So I would like to state that, thank you very much for this. I remember this was a conversation possibly 5 or 6 years ago, and our less licensed massage therapists, the massage therapy community has been struggling with the perception of massage therapy and licensed massage therapy for 122 years. So we are over the moon to be separated from the illegal activity. Let's see, the biggest things that come to my mind are that your licensed massage therapy community is a collective of healers. We are peacemakers, we are light bringers into the community, and I am joyed to hear that it would be made clear in all the documentation and anything in paperwork that make it clear that it is licensed massage therapy and illegal massage, illegal massage activity.
The other.
Yes, because it is of utmost importance that we, and that's how we work, and that's why we're here tonight, is because of our integrity. We have worked so hard to maintain, or to have that as a profession, and we work diligently around the clock to not only maintain that integrity, but to educate the general public that that our touch is a healing touch and not the other. So that's worldwide. We are here to stand up for our integrity and to make sure, or just request, ask, express in this way that that is as clearly as possible, the line is drawn between us and them, because that would affect, thank you for your comment earlier, your question, that would affect us because the odds are sort of against us already, as far as helping people understand what healing we, can offer them or help facilitate within them. So the wording is what I would request, as far as, making that clear cut between us and human trafficking and exploitation and illegal activity in every way. We are absolutely on the side of, making sure that we can continue to educate the right way, and then it makes it even clearer what's actually going on, and the exposure, basically, by what we do in our integrity helps expose what we're trying to expose. It all sounds good. The no fees, the exemption, we are, I'll speak for myself, very grateful that has been done for us. So thank you very much for everything.
Thank you, Ms. Kermeans. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on the topic at hand? Are there any other members of city staff who would like to speak on the issue? All right. Before we move to a final vote here, I have I'd like to see the actual complete written language of the law, which I have not yet seen. And while I agree with everything that's been said here tonight, and the chief's message about what we're seeing, I'm not sure that I feel really comfortable yet with moving this forward out of committee. But I know other committee member or council members here tonight have seen so. So as kind of an ad hoc discussion, is there anyone who here feels that we have seen, and I know we've got the broad strokes of this, and we have but I'm a little more worried about the fine print of this bill as a regulation on local businesses. I know that we all agree that the topic at hand is a serious one that needs to be addressed, and no one's discounting that, and that some action does need to be taken, whether it's now or slightly delayed, which I might be advocating for. But is there anyone on council who might have an opinion on the exact language? And I only bring this up because of the proposed law, the ordinance from West Carrollton that I have here, which I do not know exactly is what the city has in mind, but unfortunately, I don't know exactly what we do have in mind for that. Again, we have the broad strokes, but is there any indication that I can get the exact fine print of what we are proposing?
Mr. Wyndham, my understanding that your committee is recommending that legislation be prepared, or are you asking that it come back to your committee?
I guess
Or go to council?
When I was having discussions about this with city staff, I was kind of asking for more fine detail. I understand that we can't write the exact law out ahead of time. That's not what I'm saying. But are some of the things that are proposed, having the chief do this and the chief do that, he will be in charge of this, he will revoke this, he will revoke that. Are we fully prepared and comfortable?
I don't think we have an ordinance yet.
Well, we don't have.
I would ask for a little bit of room. I'm sorry.
Well, let me just kind of go through our process. If there is a positive recommendation, I would assume that an ordinance would be written, and then we would have that available for the first reading. If the committee, certain members of the committee, and I've done this with all members, if you wish it to be punted over for a second reading or another committee meeting, I'm happy to schedule that, and I'm happy to have that happen. So by providing a positive recommendation, we're not stopping the process. The process can continue to go as it goes forward, and if for whatever reason you're uncomfortable with it, we can punt it to a second and third reading if that's necessary.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add to that, the rules of council certainly allow that amendments can be made on the floor of council. So let's say you see a first reading of it, you don't like some language, then somebody can move and second and take a vote on amending that legislation. The only requirement is then it then has to go to another reading before it can be voted on.
It's sort of a chicken and egg concept. We would have 9 lawyers or quasi-lawyers reading each piece of ordinance before it went. And so I think, to your point, everyone will have a copy. I may not agree, Mr. Phillips may not agree, Mr. Pierce may not agree, you may not agree. You can always ask for a second reading, but we have to agree to have Grant draft it, and then we can make comments, and that's what this stage is.
All right,
I understand your concerns completely, Mr. Warden. I've been there myself a couple times.
Mr. Marshall, do you have any feeling on it?
I think I would ask them, like, how do they feel? How would the therapists in the audience feel about us moving forward and a prepared ordinance be drafted and we look at it and see? I mean, they're the ones who need to be comfortable because it does really affect their livelihood and their business. And I don't want to make a judgment on something that's going to hinder that for them. I mean, that's why we're here. So, I mean, I'm okay with moving forward if they're okay with that. I don't know if we're allowed to ask that or not, but I mean.
If I may.
Mr. Phillips.
This is just not limited to LMTs.
Right, I know, but they're here.
Yeah, I understand.
They're the ones that are here, and
I
so, I
understand.
mean, they've heard everything. So that's where I'm asking, I don't have the option to go out and ask everybody else before I make a decision. They're right here.
I get that, except that we're the body that does this. And as
I
Mr.
understand
Seaver
that.
indicates, we have to have a written document to even
understand
start with.
Sure,
So that's where we're at.
right, and I do understand that.
Okay.
Ms. Marshall, can I propose something that might assist everyone in this? I understand everyone's issues. It's the process, and I don't mean to use the word, but if you remember from council meetings, prior to us doing anything, we ask the community if you have any comments on that legislation. So what I would propose is the names of anybody who's out here who wants to see the statute beforehand. It's part of our council packet. They get informed, or we figure out how to get them so that they can see a copy. If they want to come back to the council meeting, either via email or prior to the meeting, there will always, I will defer to my friend to my right, the president, but I recall he always asked, are there any comments on the legislation before we move forward? At that time, we would certainly entertain any comments, whether they've come electronically through email or whether they're in person. I know it's hard to come up to court, or to a dais, you did a great job. I know that's, not everyone can come up and do that, so email is fine, coming up and speaking will be fine. But you'll do that before we move forward.
So we get an ordinance that shows everything, and then we can say, I don't.
Or you can simply ask for Mr. Whitten, who's chairman of the committee? Mr. Whitten?
Mr. Twist.
Mr. Twist.
Mr. Twist. Okay, so Mr. Twist, or any one of you, or really anybody on council, could say, hey, you know what, I read this, and I think we should kick it a week. We're not asking for emergency on this, right? Or kick it 2 weeks, right?
No.
This is an emergency.
No.
So there's no reason it can't go through 3 readings and give everybody sufficient time to answer all the questions. And there may be some valid questions, trust me. I'm pretty peculiar on what the language of a statute has to say. So I understand that there may be issues with it, and I understand we don't want to blindly say we're going to agree to this without reading it. But the purpose of today is we either have to say, yeah, we want to move forward, or no, we don't. And I think that's where we find ourselves today. Oh, I know, it's an ordinance, not a statute, I'm sorry.
Is there any final comment before we move on? I came into this meeting, I was very wary of what we were going to be discussing here tonight. I think the chief has done a remarkable job in relaying some of my concerns about this issue, so I thank him for that. I will be very interested to see what the language that we do come up with when it comes to council, but based on what we've heard tonight, I am prepared that we recommend that we move forward with this at this time. Is there any other stuff any other activities we come before
No.
Safety and Health Committee? We are adjourned.